What is the difference between a low lunge, a high lunge, and a warrior one? You might be able to figure out the difference between a low lunge and a high lunge, but how about a high lunge and a warrior one? Benefits? One better than the other, or are they the same? That's what we're going to look at right now. Roll out your mat and let's explore. Let's have a look at a low lunge. So you are probably super familiar with the low lunge now. Obviously, it is a lunge with our knee down on the ground, done nice and low. Now, it depends on your flexibility as to how far back this back leg goes. And it might be that you're super flexible and it's super comfy, or it might be that you're not and you need some support, some props. You need the knee a little closer, you want to bring the earth up to you. The thing is, with our yoga practice, our asana practice, if you're feeling a stretch and it feels like it's getting in the right area and it feels good in a challenging way, then it's more than likely pretty darn good. So you don't have to do what people are doing next to you. You have to tune in to what your body requires and needs. Now, the other thing with our lunges and our warriors and all of those things is we want to make sure our knees are protected. So for example, if you're on quite a hard surface, you could put a little cushion or a blanket underneath that back knee, or even tuck the mat and double it up there. The foot being tucked under will give your knee more support. The foot being flat will work a little more strengthening up the back of the leg. It's totally up to you. There's no right or wrong with tucking or untucking. It's what feels comfortable for you. You might even find that one side you tuck and the other side you don't, and it might be an unconscious thing. And now, the front knee. Knee over ankle. What we don't want is knee over foot or way past the foot. If you are hanging out here stretching, fine. Let's stretch into the calf, the Achilles, the soleus. But if you are moving through a vinyasa or a sun salute, then if you continue to go past this right angle, you're going to put undue stress onto that knee. And we don't want to stress the knee, we don't want to tear it, we don't want any injuries. We want nice, healthy knees, right? So being able to rely on your bone structure, on your skeleton, of stacking the energy from this bone right down into the heel is going to be the best way to protect your knees. And then from here, you can rest here, 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 whatever you want to do with your arms. Once you're stable, you can play with your upper body. High lunge, the difference is we tuck the toes and we lift the back knee. Now you can bring that in a bit more for a high lunge. It all depends again on your flexibility, or you could just step into it. High lunge, boom. Make sure that you're not stepping back on a tightrope, because that's going to be wobbly. Just stand hip width apart and step straight back through the hip line. Now when I talk about hip width, I'm not talking about our outer hips. I'm talking about our bone structure, our skeleton, our hip bones. So thinking about where that is, it's generally about a loose palm between your feet, more or less. So I'll do it facing this way. I step back into my high lunge. I pull the energy into my belly button from all 4 points of the compass, north, south, east, west, jump, jump. So I can hug in through my inner thighs to give me more balance and strength. And as I draw the energy back through my hips, I can pull my belly in slightly. As I do that, notice I can lengthen my tailbone to the ground. And I can also do that by bending and straightening this back leg. So once I'm here, I'm nice and contained. I've got this feeling in my body of Tadasana from hip to shoulder. Everything's drawing in, Tadasana. And I'm nice and contained through my ribs and my hip bones. Then especially if I started with my knee bent. I can reach into that back heel as much as I like. Now I've got quite flexible ankles, so my heel could possibly come to the ground, but it's a high lunge, so there's no need to. I'm going to work strength in my calf muscle, in my leg, and my glute, and my core here, especially if I follow the rules of lining up my body. And then I've got the freedom from here, once I'm stable, to do what I want with my high lunge. Once my foundations are strong and stable in my legs, and I build it up from the ground, then I can do what I like with my upper body and not feel like I'm going to topple over. Keep the breath flowing with you. So, high lunge, hips face forward, heels off the ground, we're hip width apart. What is the difference with a warrior one and a high lunge? Basically, my heel comes to the ground. My hips might open a little. Now, what we want to understand is that we're not doing a warrior two. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but some people don't understand that. And the difference between a warrior two and a warrior one for their body type might be very slight. So if that's the case, then you're better off choosing a high lunge instead. So warrior two, my hips are going to be more open. My hips are not going to be super open. Look what happens to my knee, but someone else's might be, depending on how their pelvis is built. For me, my hips are at a 45-degree angle if I want to come into a warrior two, and then I just cheat it by opening up through my rib cage. My high lunge, because my hips are more closed, my high lunge is easier for me. My warrior one is easier for me. As I turn my hips to face the front, I've got quite a lot of flexibility in my ankle. So I can totally have my hips facing the front. And that's what we're looking for in our warrior one to distinguish it from our warrior two. However, you might not have the flexibility in your ankle or your hips. In that case, high lunge is the pose to choose, because everything you do in warrior one, you can do in a high lunge. You can't do everything in warrior one that you can do in a high lunge. Yes. Did that make sense? So high lunge gives you more flexibility and more options. Warrior one's pretty good, but there's some things that you won't be able to do simply because of that back leg. Now my big toe will be pointing up to the top corner of my mat, more or less, thereabouts. It's not going to be pointing out to the side. In my warrior two, my big toe might point up a little, but it's not going to point up this much. And as usual, I want to spread through my front foot from the big toe ball to the little toe ball and into the center of the heel. And I want my knee to continue to point forward. And I don't want to curve into my back and let my belly drop out. So just like in high lunge, I want to pull belly in, lengthen through the tailbone, draw back through the right hip crease. Now things are working. Things are starting to spiral and spin the energy out through my body. Now I'm working strength and energy and stamina and all of that good stuff. So from here, I can raise my arms. I can come into my arrowhead pose. I could come into a humble warrior. I feel more comfortable doing a warrior one for my humble warrior, but you can totally do a high lunge for your humble warrior too. It all depends on how that back ankle feels. So what I can't do very well, because it's going to overstress my ankle, is try and twist. So in that case, I would just turn into my high lunge, and then I can comfortably twist into it. Just shaking that out because that's a long time in those poses. So that's basically it. The difference between a high lunge and a warrior one is what happens in that back foot. And everything that you do in your low lunge and everything that you do in your high lunge to set up the front leg, the core of the body, the hips, is the same in your warrior one. So there's lots of similarities and there's subtle differences. So my advice to you is to play with them. Play with the three. Look for the differences and the similarities and feel into your body. Notice what's the subtle difference you get in your musculature and your bone structure in your body between a high lunge and a warrior one. The only way to get the most out of your asana is to play with it, explore it, experiment. Don't just take my word or your yoga teacher's word or someone on YouTube or an influencer. Use your experience to inform what is best for your body. And if there's anything else you'd like a breakdown of or how to on, just mention it in the comments and I'll try and get that done at some stage. Thanks for joining me and I'll see you soon.